It's another early one, Charles. How are you this morning, this evening, wherever
Uh,
you are here in an undisclosed location?
I'm in a bunker.
Yeah.
Uh, no, it's thanks for accommodating my crazy travel schedule. I really appreciate it. I think the art department deserves yet another raise, but it might be interesting to the viewers to have you take us through why this poster is, state of art.
Well, it does actually represent a technological breakthrough, Charles. I could not have done this poster even last week. One of the AI tools that I utilize has introduced this multimodal image, what do they call it? You can use multiple image references, style references, content references, and also text prompting. So I was able to create, in the style of wooden marionette puppets, Dumb Joe, B-Rock, Kamala, Hillary, and Hunter in the style of Team America puppets. But this is Team Destroy America because that seems to be, first of all, what they're doing. And it's just
Right,
this is what they're doing.
right. Well, I'd like to spend a few minutes just commenting on a view from afar here. Um, America is indeed being destroyed by this Biden administration, in my view, and they're using this death by a thousand cuts method. When Bret Baier called Arizona for Biden in November of 2020, the whole temperature, I think, of the media complex changed, and it became acceptable after that. Any contrary viewpoint on the heels of their success destroying critics of the COVID approach. Anybody who dared question whether there were election irregularities to, what was truly going on January 6th, was that a setup involving Nancy Pelosi and the FBI to get the Trump team? Anybody in the early days who dared to speak up was pounced, was shouted down. Indeed, in some cases, hundreds of people were arrested on, I think, spurious grounds, as we're going to find out soon in the January 6th matter. And I remember writing, I forget when it was, I think it was in 2022 when the Mar-a-Lago raid happened. I couldn't conceive then of an administration so crooked as letting a team of prosecuting attorneys right up through Merrick Garland to Joe Biden himself, agreeing to stage a raid on a former president's house at the very same time that Joe Biden and his team were still holding classified documents at multiple locations. We still don't know the story. I could not then conceive of an administration so corrupt that they would fake a crime scene, that they would indeed have been working to send classified materials in boxes down to Mar-a-Lago, that they would then go and steal Trump family property, which still they have, and then stage this fake crime scene as if Trump would be so sloppy as to leave documents on the ground the way the FBI portrayed to the wider world in a photo that really, ripped around the world and I think is seared into the consciousness of many people. That raid really did more to damage the Trump brand than all of Hillary Clinton's Russia, Russia, Russia stuff, because most of us, and myself included even now, are inclined to give prosecutors the benefit of the doubt. Most of us refuse to believe that the prosecutorial apparatus in the U.S. could be this fucking corrupt, as to believe it's
What's this
okay.
us business?
Huh?
I said, what's this us business?
Well, all right, whatever.
Some
But
people
my point
say.
is, yeah, some would say. My point is that this is not an acceptable mistake. I mean, this is a kind of thing. Heads need to roll here. Merrick Garland needs to be impeached. The prosecutorial team, Jack Smith, belongs in prison. The National Archivist belongs in prison. The people who facilitated this in the media and are part of this ongoing conspiracy to paint Trump as a demon and to protect Joe Biden and, most importantly, Barack Obama and members of the Barack Obama administration, especially including Hillary Clinton and her husband in name only, Hino. This is not the America. Barack Obama was always fond of saying, these are not our values. These truly are, as if he would know, these truly are not American values. The scales of justice in this country, when the prosecutor decides to train U.S. federal government resources on a defendant, one or more defendant, history shows to date that prosecutions occur in over 90% of all the time of all matters prosecuted, and that's because many times the defendant just gives up because the cost of the defense and the uncertainty of winning just doesn't make it worthwhile to do anything other than settle. So for the prosecution here to have questions, valid questions raised by Ed Meese's brief about whether Jack Smith is even technically lawfully authorized as a special prosecutor. I don't think he is. I'm no lawyer, but I think he's been exceeding his authority now for years. I think there are Whitey Moynihan has brought a whistleblower complaint forward against Jack Smith, claiming that while Smith was in his role at The Hague, that he was engaged in criminal activities. Now, I don't know if that's true or false, but I do know that Jack Smith did not fit the technical requirements of being a special prosecutor when Joe Biden and Merrick Garland put him in that role and sicked him on Trump and the Trump team. And now we find out that there's coordination. This is something we suspected all along, you and I both, that the Biden White House was actively colluding with Alvin Bragg, with Fani Willis, and with others to get Trumpy. I mean, and that is just so far beyond the pale. The Justice Department should not be prosecuting political differences. They certainly shouldn't be staging crimes. They shouldn't countenance the idea that Alvin Bragg, that dumbass, could bring an indictment, which you can get in New York City and New York State, without specifying a crime. It's preposterous. It's like Franz Kafka. And we can't take this lying down. Frankly, Donald Trump has to say, look, at a certain point now, he's got to say, I have fought the good fight in good faith for some time now, but I've had enough of this. And I am going to clean this up. And you better be afraid of me because I'm going to win. This Wildwood rally is amazing to me that in New Jersey on short notice, he would poll an estimated 100,000+ people, a boisterous rally in New Jersey, which is a blue state. If he can get that kind of crowd on short notice, and it was on short notice, imagine what's going to happen when he starts barnstorming through New York State and California and other blue states. And I'm not saying he's necessarily going to win New York and California, but the contrast between if Biden remains the candidate with hoo-ha Harris, I mean, they would have to pay $1,000 a person. And even then, they couldn't get 100,000 people to a rally, in my view. And certainly, Biden would not get up and energize the crowd. It'd be like watching a hemorrhoid commercial, which I don't like to do.
Bring that inflatable donut.
Right. I mean,
Wow.
It's just this is amazing to me.
Isn't that great with the roller coaster in the background? It's so super summertime kind of image.
Right. Right.
It's like a rock star. He even said it's more people than Bruce Springsteen or something like that.
Yeah. And people out of the woodwork are Lawrence Taylor. I'm wearing a Giants hat, but I'm not a football fan. And Lawrence Taylor, I understand, is one of the living greats of football, and I believe he's not white. So, I mean, they're going to be. Trump only needs to get, I would argue, not even 20% of the black vote, and Biden's toast.
Didn't his leg snap in half at one point, Lawrence Taylor?
I don't know. You know more about this than I did.
I think somebody tackled him like crazy one time, and he had a bad injury. But that was a long time ago.
Could be. He's still plenty tough.
Yeah.
And, in his prime, he was amazing. So I think America in general, except for people in the Democratic Party and on college campuses, they don't celebrate losing. I mean, America's about winning. People in their heart of hearts want to win at whatever it is they're doing. And every day they, under this meathead, I would argue he's a criminal, and his whole family are criminal. Every day, Americans of all political persuasions buy things. And every day they understand that the meathead who got up and said inflation was 9% when he took office was actually 1.4%. The people who have to pay for things and the people who don't have savings, financial savings, which is 80% of America, every day it's an affront to hear from this meathead who owns 2 mansions. We can't explain how he bought them, how he has the things he apparently has. This meathead can say, well, no, actually, all of you can afford to buy food. The economy's in good shape. I turned it around.
Yeah.
I mean, he did not turn it around. He did not create 15 million jobs. Trump did not have 9% inflation. There's nothing. I struggle at this point to understand anything that Biden says which might be true. And to stick behind him, the Democratic Party seems determined to destroy itself. I mean, to go back to Wildwood for a second, I mean, in these races, what could happen here is akin to what happened with Reagan in 80 and Reagan in 84. Not only might Trump win, assuming he remains healthy and alive and they don't pull more stunts against him, but in a fair contest, not only will he win, but he's gonna drag the coattail effects of dragging people across the line who he has endorsed in congressional and Senate races. Could lead to a blowout.
I think like nothing we've ever seen before, Charles. They were saying
you're talking like Trump, Jason.
Well, because he was saying it last night. What was his name? Jeff Van, whoever that, Van Drew, is that
Congressman.
it? Yeah.
He was a Democrat turned Republican.
Right.
Yeah.
And he came out and said that their official number is 101,000 and it's the largest political rally in New Jersey's history. I mean, these are real numbers that you can't hide. Like all the manipulation, we see it here on social media. There are accounts that get lots of views and things, but it seems not congruent with the comments or whatever else. There's certain things that you can't hide. And this crowd of 100,000 people showing up is one of those things. Just a quick side note, I've been educated and informed that Lawrence Taylor snapped the leg of Joe Theismann, not the other way around.
Oh.
So he didn't break his leg. He broke somebody's leg.
Oh boy. See, I know. I mean, I know who Joe Theismann is, but
yeah. But when they say break a leg, it's always better if it's somebody else's leg.
Yeah, and snapping a leg is pretty tough.
It is.
But back on this 101,000, I think it's when you have these big sporting events that get 60, 80, 100,000 people, those are typically marketed weeks, months in advance. I don't think the Wildwood Rally was marketed months in advance. And, this is genuine enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I mean, Biden goes and he gives a speech, a barn-burning speech, and he'll say, in the middle of the speech, he'll say, pause, applause.
Exactly. Zoom in. It's like, oh.
Right. There are 2 things are really important here, and he'll say one thing. Or he's got this thing. His catchphrase is, "Don't jump." What the hell is he talking about? Don't jump. Who is thinking of jumping?
Yeah.
I
don't know.
I mean, if Joe Biden were the Republican candidate for president, the mainstream press would be, laughing hilariously. But there was some comic I saw on Free Republic, one of these posts on Free Republic, who, how comics will call out to the audience, and it's always a big mistake to answer. Put your hand up. So somebody, he has to know, what do you do? And this guy kind of in a braggadocio way said, well, I work in the Biden administration.
Oh, boy.
And this comic in like 59 seconds reduced him to rubble. He said, what do you do? Are you the guy who sits there and goes, wake up, Joe? And, and the guy kept talking, and he said, no, I'm in charge of Southern policy. And at this, the comic dropped the microphone. So picks it up, and he says, what, you go to Trump country and try to sell Biden, and you think that's going to work? You better get used to never working again, dude. It was hilarious. And that, yes, I'm sure, the team that is concocted, that is insisting on vegan and other food at these Palestinian rallies where they take over buildings, that team is never going to vote for Trump. And that team may be the feeder group for the working at the New York Times in entry-level positions and other media operations, and end up teaching people in school and at university and whatever. But that is hardly representative of the American electorate in 2024, May 2024. Makes the American electorate, the time that you and I have been working together since 2017, academia, wholly discredited. It is very expensive. It is fraudulent. At least a third of all peer-reviewed papers are garbage or wrong. They got so many things wrong, whether it's, the COVID thing or the election interference or Hillary Clinton. You go on and on and on. So everything. Nobody gives a shit what a Harvard professor has to say about anything. And very few people will pay for that. Maybe people outside the country who want their kids to have the pedigree. As far as, this is just since 2017. Nobody cares what Jake Tapper has to say, or Maggie Haberman, or anybody who writes for the New York Times or works at CNN. Nobody freaking cares anymore. Because people who actually have to put food on the table lawfully, have to invent new products, deliver new services, those people understand that Bidenomics certainly deserve. Stan Druckenmiller was too nice to say that Bidenomics deserves an F. Bidenomics deserves, young man, take this, whatever it's costing now to make a phone call under Biden, take this $5 bill to make a local call, and tell your mother that you're never going to be working in any sphere ever again. You're going to be on the dole, and you better have some savings if you don't end up in jail for what you've done. So the academia has been discredited, media has been discredited, these multinational corporations have been discredited, these bought and paid for politicians have been discredited. And Stanley Druckenmiller is somebody I've met. He is he made some mistakes actually in the internet period. He lost money when others were making money, but over a long number of decades, this man has been very, very successful. He started with, I think, a very limited stake, and he's a multi-billionaire today. And when people ask what we should do with a country or a region or an industry, you listen to Stanley Druckenmiller. The last person you listen to is that idiot, Jared Bernstein, who's Biden's chair of his Council on Economic Destroy Advisors. Economic destruction advisors.
So Druckenmiller says excessive spending could outweigh the gains of AI. But is he considering wooden puppets, Charles? This is a growth industry.
Right. Well, I'm not going to say what country I'm in right now, but I'm in a country that's depressed. And it's interesting to see what happens when you sap the will of a people. And I'm seeing some of what you and I have showed our viewership in New York here in this country. So there's less garbage on the streets here, but there are collections of typically men who seem to have nothing to do, no work. They're sitting around. They don't, know a way forward. Industry is not investing and won't invest in this country. What's happened is the rural population has fled to the capital city. So there's a construction boom in the capital city, but there's no work. And there's no industry. And that's the direction these idiots, who, remember what Obama said when he was pretending to be president. He was actually president, but he wasn't discharging his duties effectively, in my view. He actually went on a tear to the private sector and tried to make the argument that the private sector didn't build America. Government did. It's a bad idea to smoke hash while you're being president of the United States. What was he talking about? Our government did not build anything effectively. Nothing. And certainly under Biden, there isn't a government initiative that makes any freaking sense. From destroying the student loan industry and academia by saying, hey, you know what? By a stroke of a pen, in defiance of the Supreme Court, I'm just going to eliminate your debts to get votes. Oh, by the way, I need
money
more
from
votes
all
from
the taxpayers.
Hispanics.
Stealing our money.
Right, and he's opening up the southern border, and the truth emerged last week where Democrats in the House said, yeah, absolutely, we're going to give illegals the right to vote. That will not happen, I don't think. And the message here that people, with my own children, if they were contemplating going back to graduate school now in America, I would say, no, don't do it. It doesn't make any sense. The price points are way too high. You're not taught anything useful. Your professors are conflicted airheads. My children happen to be white. I don't want them to go into these Ivy League cesspools and have to be lectured about how white people are evil. It's not what we signed up for by giving educational institutions tax exemption to be nonpartisan. So this is a very, this will be a very important election come November. And I think people who look at the decision, should their kids go to these diploma mills, or should they get out in the real world and either travel or then acquire a trade skill? Why should those people be subsidizing the very bad choices, the blue-haired, skin-pierced morons took majoring in sociology at expensive private universities using student loans? Why should those loans be forgiven?
Small correction. KJ Avery is with us on Facebook, and it is correct to say that Obama was smoking crack with Larry Sinclair, not hash.
Well, I wasn't referring to Larry Sinclair. I mean, I think that Obama, who knows how many different drugs. There were reports that at the time of his presidency that he was indeed using drugs.
He looks pretty healthy for a 61-year-old guy who, I don't know, we would need some more. Obviously, there has been drug use in his life that he's admitted to, but I don't know if he's a regular drug user. I think people who I've known who are really drinking and abusing drugs, by the time they reach 60, they're just like...
Yeah.
But he's still an idiot, irrespective of that. And doing evil. It's the integration of Weather Underground, people, and policies. And what really happened, I think, and we're starting to learn in part due to your research, is that like the Reagan-era criminals with the Bush family and people who manipulated Reagan's presidency, they sort of invented this idea of monetizing the presidency in the same way that, like, Reggie Jackson had a candy bar, but I don't think that sports stars really started making money from endorsements until Michael Jordan and the sneakers. Right. Like when I was a kid, that stuff all started coming about. And Bill Clinton really was the Michael Jordan of presidents in that regard because he supercharged the monetization of the presidency. And now it's been normalized under Obama. And what Obama did was by integrating all of these public-private partnerships through executive orders and enabling this just vast array of NGOs that are now boldly involved in criminal activity. And even when you call them up, point it out, ask them about it, publish their 990s where they've printed their own wrongdoing, they're so emboldened that they just don't care.
Right. Well, that's because whoever's supposed to prosecute this is on the team.
Yes, that's right. And I think that happened under Obama. They cinched up the top of the sack under Obama. And Joe Biden is the first idiot to ride on the coattails. These people were sort of intelligent criminals, and Biden's, a complete moron. What did Trump call him at the rally?
I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, morons are smarter.
Total moron. Yeah. People say, oh, it's not presidential. It's accurate as can be.
Right. Well, Biden is not presidential.
He's a total moron.
Right? I mean, well, you see, when you entrust power to somebody, you do so hoping that person will exercise power judiciously and will be well aware of the fact that there is a power inequity, right? The President of the United States today can do things and has done things, I believe, under the Biden administration to ordinary voters and Americans. Just focusing on America for a second, that it's atrocious. It's a gross abuse of power. That's before we revisit Barack Obama drone striking American citizens with no trial.
Yeah.
You know,
but let me pause you there, if I may, Charles, because there's a lot to discuss about that, and we've just hit the end of our time here on the intro session. We're going to continue our discussion in the First Amendment Forum. I hope people will join us on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. We'll be right back. Stay with us, everybody. Become a sponsor. Join us for the sponsor exclusive segment. Charles has got a lot more to tell us about the